Taking a look at the Geo dashboard, and in the Geo dashboard you can see that on my QStore I have a warning on my application tier. And what I'll do is I'll drill into that warning now, and I'll be able to see the text of the warning, which tells me I have a problem on my Promos ASPX. And the message is the execution time of the .NET event, and I'll drill down on it to get more information. The .NET event, Promos ASPX, exceeds a warning threshold of 28 seconds, or 28,000 milliseconds. And there's a drill down for this, which will bring me down into the execution time threshold. So now drilling down into that, I can see the application load. I can also get the request execution time over time. And down here you can see that there's 45 traces available. And we only collect traces on exceptions. So there were 45 exceptions on this Promo ASPX action. What I could do now is I can drill down on the traces, on the 45 traces there are, and I could pick one of these traces that are in here, and I could see this request on the execution tree. There's parameters available. So one of the parameters that are available on each of these different traces happens to be the session ID. Now what we've done in this custom integration is we've linked the session ID to the corresponding recording of that user session. So what I can do now is I can click on this session ID, and it's going to take me into my user trace view for the user that was actually executing that promo code. Now what I can do down here is I can go down to the error that we have because of the response time, and I could see that the end-to-end time here for that specific request, the end-to-end time was 30 seconds. So what happened here is we had a timeout, and this is actually, so the nice part about this is you can now walk backwards from the exception you had in the .NET area, and you could actually see the impact on the user. So sometimes, like in this case, it's going to be visible to the user as to what happened. And on this page you can see that there was a timeout. The server wasn't responding on this one particular page. So coming back up to the top, the user was on their home page, and then from their home page, once they clicked in and went to the Promos administration, that's where they got the timeout. So let's talk a little bit more about the drill in and how this works. So what the customization was to go on the actual table where the parameters were issued. And this is more of a how do we do it thing because this is not part of the cartridge today. So there's this table, it's called the stack tree pop-up parameters, the grid layout. And on this stack tree pop-up parameters table, we added a new drill down so that we can go in and actually add the link to this session ID. Okay, so let me walk you through a little bit about how we did that. So what I was able to do is on the definition of this parameters table, I was able to edit, and in the flow for this table, one more on here, so I'm going to have to inspect the parameters table. And in the flow of this lower level parameters table, when you have a float, I was able to drill into a user trace view. So this user trace view is just an iframe that I defined, and I put that iframe in the custom FXV integration folder, and this iframe just expects a parameter called URL. And what I'm doing with the URL is I'm building a call to a function that I've defined, and that function will basically build the URL based on the parameter value that I pass to it. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you a quick peek at the function that we've defined for this. So now this table, right, we know this table on the cell selection is going to call an iframe with the URL that I create with my function. So now I'm just going to take a quick peek at the function, and like I said, it's under custom integration. And the function that we're using here is this one called get hits for exception. Okay. So this is a groovy function, and what it's going to accept is a net parameter node. So I'm basically passing it that from that field, and based on that net parameter node, which in this case would be the ASP session ID, right, which is one of those fields, one of those parameter fields. So it's going to pass it that information, and based on that information, I'm going to build a URL into my Foglight Experience Viewer. Okay, so the URL builder will basically come down, and it's going to return a string, which is basically my URL. So I'm going to get my base URL here, which I'm defining up top. So this is a hard-coded value for your Foglight Experience Viewer. This is one you'll have to modify this get hits for exception script to accommodate your actual viewer that you have when you do this integration. Okay, so after we get the base URL, we're going to get the trace parameter value. Okay, and the trace parameter value is going to come from up here. So it's what you passed into it. So you passed me the session ID, and I'm going to make that part of the URL that I'm building. And the final part I'm going to append here is this one last parameter that's required in the FXV URL. It's called nrel timestamp equals 1. And what this is going to do is this is going to just say search for this session any point in time. So I have this trace parameter value, which is the session identifier, and this is going to say go ahead and search throughout all the time you have available. Okay, now the final part here is we're going to put a user security token at the end. Actually, first we have to put the username, and this gets the Foglight username that you're logged in as. And then at the end we're going to get a token. And what the token is going to do is it's going to put a special key at the end, and what that'll let FXV do is when you log in, it'll handshake with the FMS and let you log in automatically. Okay, so this is basically the text of that code, and then the other part in my custom integration is my view, which is my user trace view, my iframe. Okay, so basically, just a real quick recap. I went into my common parameters table. I built a flow, a cell selection flow, into my user trace view, and the way that I pass the URL that I want my user trace view to invoke is generated by my function. Okay, so just to end real quickly here, let me go back to where we were before, and what I'll do is I'm going to drill again one more time on this, and I want to show you one more piece, and then we'll end concluding that. So I drill down on my default drill down. Okay, I see 45 traces. I go into my individual trace records, and then I could go into, from my individual trace records, I could go into the parameters, and then finally from the parameters I can drill into my session ID. And now one last little trick here. So that function that I executed, that JavaScript I executed to build the URL, if you want to see the URL that it built, you can go in and open up your right slide drawer, and if you go to context, you'll see the URL. So this is the URL that the function I showed you, this is the URL that it built. Okay. Okay, so that concludes the demonstration. I hope you found it useful, and if you have any questions, you can get in touch with your local sales engineer, and they'll be sure to help you. Thank you.